Hi. So I've been going through this phase of sort of like an isolation period for a while, and I don't really like using that term because it has such negative connotations uh, in our current culture. I was, of course, reading another book. It's a really great book by Eric Fromm called Escape from Freedom. I've only just begun to read it, but it's already blowing my mind, seriously. And I read this absolutely beautiful passage about the idea of isolation, and it really, really resonated with me. It went something like, okay, there are two different things that this makes me think of. One is emotional expression, of course, and the other is the understanding or interpretation of what isolation means in our current culture. So, emotional expression, and I'll explain how these both terms relate to each other. People are not supposed to express discontent in their life in today's world. We're not supposed to express when we're sad or when we're depressed or when we are not so happy with ourselves, when we are not so happy with our lives, or when we're going through a tough time. It's always we either victimize ourselves and become martyrs, whatever, or we just completely repress all of these emotions. And I saw that manifested in a lot of different personalities. What I observed was really heartbreaking because so many people in our generation have been raised in a culture where productivity and being happy with what you have is really, really important. And I'm completely not um, disregarding the importance of contentment. I am a huge believer in contentment. I believe that people should be happy with what they have. However, it can also go to a unhealthy extent, this behavior, because emotions and all kinds of emotions are absolutely normal. Feeling depressed or not feeling happy with your state or with your circumstances or your relationships or your family or your friends, anything, your career, anything is absolutely normal. And the problem is with a perfectionist, people pleasing culture that we are raised in, especially in environments where children are raised to believe that there are social objects and they are supposed to be grateful for what their parents are doing for them. Children are raised feeling as if they feel any sort of discontentment or depression, it makes them a failure. And that's a big problem because in their parents' eyes or in society's eyes, being a failure is just not acceptable. And oh my god, it's so toxic. What can you even say about this depressing state of events? But so this passage explains something like, if a person is not expressing their genuine emotions, their genuine discontent or content with their life, if they're happy, they should be expressing that happiness, and if they're sad, they should be expressing that sadness. But if you do that and you have all sorts of privileges and you have money and you have, a good social circle, you're living in a nice place, then it's it's misconstrued as being like ungrateful, that you have everything, what the hell do you have to complain about? But the thing is, if children act like that or if adults act like that, when they already have things that they're supposed to have, everyone else is sort of like really hard on them, really harsh on them, that at least you shouldn't be depressed. And that just doesn't make any sense. And then the other idea was this concept of isolation. And they say that isolation is a dream killer, but there are different sorts of isolation. So there is a form of isolation which occurs when you're actually completely disconnected from your physical world, but that isolation isn't really that detrimental if you're still interacting with people who you feel like you should be interacting with. For instance, if you have certain ideas and principles, if you have certain, dreams and aspirations, and you're working towards those goals, and you're working towards those ambitions, and you're sacrificing your social life for it, which I am. Okay, so people are often really surprised that you don't really have a very extensive social life, you're not really that interactive. Like, how do you even survive? I have my own set of problems, okay? It's normal to have problems. I'm a human being. But the thing is, I have developed a sort of different perspective towards living life as long as I'm reading books, as long as I'm having very meaningful conversations with very few people, and I'm pursuing my goals and my dreams. I'm practicing, a little bit of art every day, and it doesn't even matter what sort of art I'm practicing. If I'm painting, if I'm sketching, I'm a terrible painter because I've never painted in my life. I haven't, but I love art, and since childhood I have done a lot of sketching. I was always making portraits in my teenage. Growing up, I just became really good at that, and that's what naturally occurs when you practice something over and over again. And painting is just something that I never really did, and now that I'm doing that, it's very, very gratifying. It's very gratifying because I don't attach labels to, at least, these sort of things. I know labels are important in a lot of things, trust me, but yeah. But when it comes to like your profession or your relationships, I remember reading something that went like, if you want to practice art, you should never call yourself an artist. Otherwise, you'll box yourself in that mold or in that sort of prison again. And if you know anything about the art industry, the art market, it is so toxic. Like, it's fucking toxic. So people have sort of transitioned or transformed art from its essence to art as an object to be sold and to be looked at. And I was just watching this really, really amazing video on the same concept, which went something like, the art market is destroying the soul of what it's supposed to be. So art is supposed to be a personal expression of whatever you're feeling, or however you're looking at the world. It's the way that you look at the world, right? And it's the way that you want to express. It's the way that you want other people to see how you see the world. And when we talk about the art market is only concerned about how much money you can get by selling art, and which is why I never really sold anything creative that I've ever made. I know I'm not like a really great artist or anything, but I am an artist. I love art, and I don't think I'm ever going to sell my art. I have a lot of different ways to earn money. I want to practice data science. I want to practice filmmaking. I want to practice a lot of different things that are really, really financially, substantial, if you think about it. So in that way, I never chose art as a profession. I would have loved to go to an art school. However, I never really chose art as a profession, because even when I hadn't read about all of this stuff, I did understand the reality of what it meant to sell something that's really, really important to you. So, and that makes me think about what happened to Kurt Cobain and what happened to Chester Bennington as well. Their greatest tragedy was that they hated materialistic culture, and they inevitably became a part of it, and that's what caused so much depression and so much angst in their lives, because both of them went through like really, really difficult childhoods, and growing up, I'm sure they believe that if I become famous, or if I become successful, if I have a lot of money, and that's what all of us think, so they just felt like if they just reached that level of perfection, they would be happy. But of course, that wasn't the case. And I love both of them so much. You don't even know how much I love them, because these two people like them, generally artistic people who genuinely express their real emotions, and they're really, really caring about their form of expression too. So they were really close to my heart, and they helped me go through a lot of really, really tough times. So when people ask me that, why are you like this, why do you not socialize that much, I always think about, I always reflect back on whether this is a really problematic thing or not, and I end up deciding that it really isn't bad at all. It's actually pretty great, because in my life, if I have a few really interesting conversations in, maybe you can say two or three really, really interesting conversations in an entire month, and if I compare it to making small talk with people for an entire month, and if I compare the two, I would be happier in the month where I had those three really awesome interactions with really cool people, really amazing people. And that sustains me, that genuinely sustains me, that makes me happy. I think about it when I go home. I, you know mull things over in my brain, the things that I discussed with them, all of that. So coming back to the idea of isolation, so what Eric Fromm says is, there are two different kinds of isolation. So a person like me, um, I might be disconnected with the physical world a lot of times. I'm in my head a lot. I'm thinking, I'm doing something on my own time, and I'm practicing something or other. But I have a lot of really substantial things to sustain me and to nourish me. The books that I read give me a lot of clarity, they give me a lot of knowledge, they give me a sense of belonging to all of these really amazing people who wrote these things that are helping a person like me, in this world. And you never even meet these people. Like, some books I read are by people who've, been dead for, I don't know, uh, decades or centuries even. So, but have you ever thought about how amazing it is to sit around a bonfire and just like tell each other stories? When growing up as kids, we used to do that a lot. We used to tell each other horror stories, or just, random stories about whatever happened, and a lot of them were fabricated as well. But it was just the act of telling stories that made us connect to each other in a much more meaningful way than in any other form of communication. So, like, I would be having a conversation with a person, I would be talking about, career, profession, clothes, shopping, makeup, whatever. But if I tell them a story, if I tell them, this happened or that happened in my life, and if that resonates with them, if they can really, really relate to it, that would leave a much better impact than just, talking about nothing. Talking about nothing isn't really inherently a bad thing, but that shouldn't be like the point of life. The point of life should be to get things out of each other. Like, what do you genuinely think about? What do you genuinely feel about? So in this kind of environment, or in this kind of social interaction, what Eric Fromm believes is, people who have a lot of moral connectivity to other people, and it's not even like good or evil sort of morals, it's just like, if you can relate to a person and you have the same kind of principles, the same kind of dreams or aspirations, that kind of bonding, even if you're not in the same physical environment, is much more substantial than just superficially uh, being near a person, right? So in the other form of isolation, a person could be surrounded by a lot of people, and we often feel like that's the idea or definition of happiness, but it really isn't, because happiness in a lot of ways can become a mask that we wear. And coming back to what I said about capitalism and corporate culture, that penalizes us for being depressed or being sad or being unhappy with, very, very minor trivial things that we usually get over very quickly if we express them, or if we are allowed to express them. If you think about that, that happiness is a really bad mask, because we are not being authentic to the world, and in turn we're not being authentic to ourselves. So we feel like we can fool everyone, we can manipulate everyone, but there's this one person that we can never manipulate, that we can never um, fool, is ourselves. And we, at the end of the day, know every single thing that we're doing, and it just does not make us very happy to know that we are fraud or fake. So in that kind of environment or that kind of personality, a person could be surrounded by a lot of people. They feel like they have friends, they feel like they have a social life, they go out every day, and I'm not against going out. I love going out, but if I'm going out at the right places, I love traveling, I love nature, I love museums, I love a lot of things. I love going for walks. I used to really love, riding a bicycle and just, wearing my headphones, listening to an audiobook or a podcast or a video or some sort, and just walking in winters. That is actually, yeah, one of my fondest memories. So I used to take a walk in this park near my house in winters and just listen to podcasts, and that was the most amazing time. Because in winters it's very foggy and everything is just enveloped in magic, you know coming back to the idea that I was talking about. Oh my god, my train of thought is just like all over the place, and this is something that my lecturers also used to point out a lot, that whether you have a lot to say but you don't really know how to structure everything. So but the idea is, the more you write or the more you speak, the better you get at structuring your thoughts. And eventually I will get there, but right now I don't really have like a setup or anything. So like, don't judge me. I'm not judging myself. So kind of a little bit, but not really. So yeah. So in that kind of environment, a person can still feel really, really isolated, because like, what are you even relating to with the other person? So you go somewhere and you post a picture, and I've considered that lifestyle, and that's just not worth it. I used to be a very, Instagram friendly person. I would post a lot with people, and I would go to parties, I would go to all kind of events and take pictures with people. And at the end of the day, when I went home, it was just like, what the fuck did I even do today? So and I like, the entire day would feel as if I wasted my time. But if I went and met someone, and if I had a really, really nice conversation with them, and we reached a point of something, what I mean is, we assume that I'm having a conversation with someone, and if we decided that I want to do this project, or I have this great idea and I want to pursue that, I want to do this or that, and then they give me ideas, and yeah, we reach something very conclusive, and we feel like there's another person in the world who also feels like us, and they want to do the same cool things that we want to do. And this is something that really, really helps when you're working in a corporate environment, because admit it or not, corporations are what give us sustenance. uh, we earn money and we still bitch about them, and that's just pathetic. Seriously. So it's not really the corporations that we should really be blaming. It should be our own selves. There's a thing called personal responsibility and personal accountability that nobody does. And I feel like, if I'm not, I generally don't like the place that I'm in right now, and that I'm in life right now. It's not like I totally don't like everything. I like a lot of things about my life right now, actually. But I don't like that I have to work like a 9 to 5 job, because even though I meet like really, really amazing people there, honestly. But the thing that brings me discontent is, even though I am pursuing my dreams and ambitions, I just cannot invest like 100% of my time and energy to these things, and that depresses me. It's just like, whenever I'm working, I'm always thinking about, like, I could be editing this video, or I could be practicing something, learning something, or sketching, or just doing any sort of art form. And but then I realize how important my current job role is, because that job teaches me how to interact with people, how to professionally interact with people, how to negotiate, how to speak better, how to communicate better, how to be more effective in your written communication, in your verbal communication, and how basically you live, because you can't be a hermit 100% of the time. So by that note, I would like to end my rant. So I just like, really, I haven't spoken about anything for a long time. I really wanted to just talk about random things, and that's what I did. So bye.